Insights on Chris Wallace's Countdown Bin Laden. Narrated by Glenn Argenti. Overview. In Countdown Bin Laden 2021, Chris Wallace, alongside Mitch Weiss, sets out a detailed account of the CIA's 247-day preparations for the raid that ultimately led to Osama bin Laden's death. Wallace and Weiss write a thrilling new description of the last 8 months of CIA gatherings and careful military preparations that resulted in the revenge that the U.S. had been looking forward to for 10 years. Countdown Bin Laden, published on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, immerses readers in a dramatic depiction of the long-awaited and carefully planned operation to capture the man behind the worst terrorist attack in U.S. history and bring him to justice. Hiding in plain sight. On September 11, 2001, 19 men hijacked 4 airplanes and committed the worst terrorist attack in the history of the United States. The terrorists flew 2 of the planes straight into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York. The 3rd plane was flown into the Pentagon, and the 4th crashed in Pennsylvania. Around 3,000 people died that day, and the U.S. immediately traced the attacks back to Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden's terrorist group. Hours after the attacks, President George W. Bush pledged that America would fight Al-Qaeda, and less than a month later, Operation Enduring Freedom was launched by a U.S.-led coalition aiming to kill bin Laden and break the Taliban government that supported Al-Qaeda. However, years later, after Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009, the new president discovered that no one had a clue where bin Laden was. He realized that capturing bin Laden was no longer a top priority for the intelligence community, so he decided to motivate his teams again. By 2010, Obama had been pushing Leon Panetta, director of the CIA, to find bin Laden. Capturing the terrorist, dead or alive, was one of Obama's top concerns. He was quite aware that the United States, even with all its forces, could never defeat Al-Qaeda as long as bin Laden remained alive. He was the group's godlike leader. Al-Qaeda means the base in Arabic. Its origins go back to 1979 when the USSR invaded Afghanistan and Muslim insurgents joined to launch a holy war, known as jihad, to fight the Soviets. Bin Laden was one of their supporters. He fought with them and brought them money, weapons, and fighters. A decade later, after the Soviets were out of Afghanistan, the country was taken over by the Taliban, Islamic extremists who allowed bin Laden to establish training camps for Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden sought to collect extremists from all over the world, and as he spread jihad internationally, his main target was the United States of America. Michael Morrell, deputy director of the CIA, had years of experience within the CIA. He had great passion for his work and knew every detail he possibly could about bin Laden. Morrell spent weeks meeting with his officers and analysts, tying together as much information as possible about a compound located in Abbottabad, Pakistan, where they believed bin Laden had been hiding. They had intercepted phone calls, asked for satellite photos, and sent people to Abbottabad to secretly bring information. They still had no proof that bin Laden was in the compound, but if he truly was, then he had been hiding in plain sight. A decisive operation. In 2010, Obama knew he would be facing a battle for re-election. Some voters had become disillusioned with him. Some even believed extreme conspiracy theories, spreading rumors that he was a radical Muslim. Such rumors were exacerbated by the fact that U.S. troops were still in Iraq and Afghanistan, even though Obama had promised he would end America's wars. For him, the fate of bin Laden would decide whether he would get another term in the White House or not. During his 2008 presidential campaign, Obama had promised that the U.S. would bring bin Laden to justice, and once he took office, he allowed more drone strikes against important targets than George W. Bush ever did. Most of his actions fighting terrorism were carried out in secret. If voters knew about them, they would change the narrative that Obama was too weak to act. Dr. Shakil Afridi is a Pakistani surgeon whom the United States paid thousands to set up a vaccination program in Abbottabad. The CIA had collected DNA from bin Laden's sister, who had died in Boston in 2010, and was hoping to collect DNA from the people living in Abbottabad through Afridi. If DNA samples coming from inside the Abbottabad compound matched those of bin Laden's sister, then the CIA would be close. The target would be inside the house, and the U.S. could then start the next step. Past mistakes. The CIA scrutiny of the Abbottabad compound revealed a major discovery. Almost every day, a man came out of the house and walked the yard for 1 or 2 hours. He paced back and forth, day after day, walking around the compound like a prisoner in a prison yard. The analysts labeled him the Pacer. However, the satellites were unable to give a clear view of the Pacer's face, so his identity could not be confirmed. By November 2010, the CIA had been keeping careful watch on the compound, but they could not identify the Pacer. They suspected that bin Laden was a decoy, and the whole thing was a setup. Eliminating bin Laden was crucial to reshape America's strategy of counterterrorism. Obama was convinced that the United States had lost focus on the case, concentrating instead on the war on terror, that in fact did nothing to reduce terrorism. Obama realized that the Middle East was in critical situations partly owing to the foreign policy mistakes of America. The United States had invaded Iraq on the basis of the assumptions that its leader Saddam Hussein was protecting al-Qaeda terrorists and stockpiling weapons of mass destruction. Neither claim was proven to be correct. The U.S. invasion of Iraq destabilized the whole region. After Hussein was toppled, Iran's sovereignty and influence spread unhindered through the Middle East as the country developed its nuclear program. In January 2011, intelligence proved that the Taliban was unceasingly trying to establish a shadow government in parts of Afghanistan. Robert O'Neill, a Navy SEAL, had been serving in the military for 15 years. O'Neill was deployed in Afghanistan, but he had no hope that he would ever find bin Laden. By that time, bin Laden had become a ghost. He sometimes asked insurgents for his whereabouts, but no one seemed to know. Panetta and McRaven. Obama had been the one to ask Panetta to run the CIA. He needed someone trustworthy to restore the agency's reputation, and Panetta had accepted. He was concerned that the Arab Spring uprising spreading across the Middle East might cause a power vacuum and threaten U.S. interests in the region. He had paid careful attention to America's past mistakes and knew that if the pacer was indeed bin Laden and they had to go get him, they must be extremely careful. Panetta also understood he had to closely observe the repercussions of the Arab Spring. He feared that it might spread and reach Libya or Iran, or worse, pro-American Egypt. Hosni Mubarak was a merciless dictator in Egypt, but he was one of the strongest allies the U.S. had in the Middle East. He had preserved peace between his nation and Israel. His rule had witnessed stability until protesters started seeking reforms and asking that Mubarak step down. Vice Admiral William McRaven was head of the U.S. Joint Special Operations Command. He planned important missions for the U.S. military's top units, such as the Navy SEALs, Delta Force, and the Green Berets. He had been summoned to meet with Morell. Even though Obama wanted to keep the bin Laden case a secret, McRaven had learned all there was to be learned. He also knew that the CIA had advanced on the case. In the meeting, Morell told him the CIA believed the pacer was bin Laden, and that they were trying hard to confirm their suspicions. The CIA wanted to make a quick move, otherwise they would lose their chance. The operation to capture bin Laden was going to be highly dangerous and risky, no matter who led it. Abbottabad had a population of 200,000 people and was located 2 hours north of Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. The walls to the north, east, and west sides of the compound were 12 feet high. The south wall was 18 feet high, hiding the view of the interior from anybody in the city. The driveway entered from the north via a metal double door. The pacer of Abbottabad. The CIA's plans were evolving. All the crew needed was evidence that bin Laden was indeed there. Dr. Afridi was the perfect helper. He was a well-respected surgeon, and no one would ever think he was cooperating with the CIA. Dr. Afridi recruited female health workers to try accessing a prominent house, a 3-floor villa in a certain neighborhood. He was putting his life, career, family, and children at risk to help Americans, but he knew it was too late to back down. During a meeting in March 2011, Panetta informed Obama that the compound was fortified in a way that made it impossible to view the inside of the house. All that strongly confirmed that someone important was hiding in the place. The uncertainty of who was hiding inside the villa increased the risks of a military action, but doing nothing was also risky, because the U.S. might then miss the best chance in a decade to apprehend bin Laden. Obama had been thinking quite a lot about the pacer, the compound in Abbottabad, and the entire operation. But every day a new crisis emerged in the world. Libya was witnessing the latest development in the Arab Spring. Peaceful protests had evolved into a civil war. Supporters of Muammar Gaddafi and rebels were engaging in heavy fighting. Obama was willing to launch airstrikes against Gaddafi's forces. In Syria, protesters were calling for democratic reforms, but Bashar al-Assad was using widespread violence to respond. However, Obama managed to shut out everything that was going on and focus on the main issue, the compound. Yet despite the CIA's efforts, they still did not know for sure who was in the compound, and if the pacer was bin Laden, how they would get to him. Finally, McRaven laid out a plan to have SEALs descend from helicopters and storm the compound. The raid was feasible, but Obama was worried about the plan, especially because relations between the U.S. and Pakistan were faltering. Obama didn't want to put the fate of SEALs in Pakistani hands, particularly if bin Laden wasn't found in the compound. A matter of life and death. The execution of the operation depended on Obama giving permission. Even though intelligence still hadn't confirmed that the pacer was bin Laden, every bit of information that the CIA collected made sense. The pieces of the puzzle just fit together. Obama had given McRaven 3 weeks to organize a possible raid. Every detail had to be perfectly thought of, including the weight every helicopter was able to carry, the amount of fuel needed to get there and return, weather conditions, and local holidays. They would have to plan exactly where to land and where to enter the compound. They continued collecting daily information from secret sources, such as satellite photos and intercepts. As the plan for a possible raid was more seriously considered, the SEALs realized it was unlikely that they would all make it out alive. Bin Laden must have bodyguards, or even a small army, and his house must be filled with explosives. Even if they managed to enter the compound, they might be blown to pieces. However, they kept thinking about the 9/11 attacks and all the innocent lives who were lost. They immediately regained motivation. For the victims. From a tactical standpoint, the raid wasn't the most complicated mission the CIA ever had to plan, but it was the most important operation, and one single mistake could end it. CIA analysts believe that bin Laden lived on the 3rd floor of the villa. He probably had at least 1 or 2 wives and about 12 children with him too. The first helicopter carrying SEALs Chalk 1 would drop the main assault team into the yard of the house, the most vulnerable spot. The second helicopter, Chalk 2, would drop O'Neill and his team right outside the north gate to provide external security. Pakistan's air defense might shoot down the helicopters before they even got to the compound, or helicopters could be blown apart as they waited for the SEALs to exit the house. However, they knew they were doing it for the people who were killed on that peaceful 2001 Tuesday. The SEALs were willing to sacrifice their lives to kill the man who was behind that collective act of murder. The CIA's clandestine service argued that the U.S. should place eyes inside the compound before moving forward with the raid, but Panetta and his team had tried every possible way to confirm that the pacer was bin Laden. They had sent CIA agents to a safe house in Abbottabad who collected information 24/7, and they had Dr. Afridi running a made-up vaccination campaign to access DNA samples. But nothing was useful so far, and no member of the family inside the compound had agreed to get vaccinated. The operation slowly unfolding. Analysts and operators kept a close watch on the pacer as he walked around his garden of vegetables every day, yet they still couldn't confirm his identity. There was a chance of losing a major opportunity with every day of delay. The pacer might disappear, and Panetta did not want to let the chance to capture bin Laden slip from his hands, not after all those years he had spent searching for him. Obama was still carefully studying the risks and possible outcomes. He listened to everyone's opinion and advice. The raid had to be done in total darkness, so the SEALs wanted to wait for a moonless night. The first few nights in May 2011 were moonless, and they were soon. If they didn't go then, they would have to postpone the operation till June. Obama had enough. He was preoccupied with so many issues: a civil war in Libya, violence in Syria, and insurgency in Afghanistan. The U.S. economy was still fighting the repercussions of the Great Recession, and of course, the bin Laden operation. Panetta had been pushing Obama to move forward with the helicopter plan. Time was running out, and if they were going to strike, it had to happen very soon. Panetta had spent long weeks trying to tie up loose ends. He was involved in every detail of the mission. He attended every in-person or online meeting. He discussed technical details with the national security team of the president. He also imagined every scenario possible, including what would happen if bin Laden was captured alive, and what to do with his body if he was killed. Into the lion's den. On April 29, 2011, Obama thought it was time to move on with the raid. He could no longer keep McRaven and his national security advisors waiting. If they were going to catch the pacer, it had to be now. For months, Obama had listened to every detail and paid attention to all the evidence. He knew everything about McRaven's plan and even watched a video of the SEALs' rehearsals. It was the perfect time. Obama had not told his advisors, but he had made up his mind weeks earlier, even though something always seemed to go bad during such missions. In this case, service members might get killed, SEALs could be imprisoned, and irreparable harm could be done to U.S.-Pakistan relations. A single misstep would cost Obama a lot, but he was ready. He approved the raid, appointing McRaven to take full control of the mission. O'Neill was worried there were too many risks. If the pacer was bin Laden, the villa had to be set up to kill invaders. However, he had no regrets regarding the mission. It was his job, and he'd do it any time if he knew he would end up killing bin Laden. Enemy killed in action. On the night of May 1st and 2nd, 2011, the United States initiated the raid against the Abbottabad compound. After the SEALs descended into the compound as planned, O'Neill made his way into the darkness of the house. He noticed a man standing at the foot of a bed in a dim light. He was taller and slimmer than O'Neill had thought, but he immediately realized he had found the target, Osama bin Laden. O'Neill shot bin Laden above his eyebrow and split his head into pieces. Blood and skull sprayed everywhere. As soon as word of bin Laden's death reached the U.S., Panetta took a deep breath. All their efforts had finally paid off. Obama hoped that bin Laden's death would become a major event in America's fight against terrorism. Owing to the terrorist status among religious extremists, the U.S. prepared for possible revenge, but thankfully, none came. We hope you enjoyed the insights on Chris Wallace's Countdown Bin Laden. Purchase the book to learn more.
If you like this video, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Visit instaread.co to get more insights from this and thousands of other books. Use the code YouTube to get a discount on your subscription.